Now I did promise that we would look at wave inside of embird. Now wave is in Genome Easy Design called Florentine. It gives you a curve, and we get that one in this program in Studio by using the closed field tool, the parallel, well yes, it's a parallel weave fill tool. Now I call it closed field because that's what it is. Here in your left vertical toolbar you've got a hammerhead and it's got a dark grey inside. If you look down here at the line tool, you've got another hammerhead, but it's got a hole in it on the edge of the boundary. That's an open field tool. Think of these as fields full of animals. A closed field tool will contain a fill. You can fill the field up because you've got a gate that you can shut and keep the animals in. This tool will not hold a fill. In other words, if you try putting animals into this field, they'll just walk out of the open gate because you've no way of locking it. So, closed field tool, so we click on that, and we're going to come straight over onto the right hand side to parameters. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knock out all my underlay. And then I'm going to slide the slider over to the right, which gets me to this side of parameters. And here I've got a scale and effect. Now wave is in the effect drop down menu, so I click on that little black chevron and there is wave. My wave is controlled by my angle of fill, so if I use an angle of fill that's 90 degrees, I get a wave that goes either this side or that side, because I determine what it will be by whether I use a positive number, which is the top one, or a negative number, which is the bottom one, here in the right hand menu. So I'm going to set a wave which has got a positive number, and I can do that by just grabbing that line there and lifting it up. If I alter that one and I bring that down, do you see what's happening? And now I'm going into negative numbers. I've now got an S, but I don't want that S. I want to put that back up to 42. So I right click on my numbers. There we go. And I'm going to leave my fill at 0. And by doing that, I know my curve shape will go in that direction. It'll make a mound in an upward direction. But I'm going to drop my density to around 7 or 8, I think. 8. That's fine. I don't want it too dense. If you use 4, 5, you'll get a reasonably dense fill and it will cause push-pull. Okay, so now I'm just going to digitize the shape. 1. Now, my digitizing has got very slow, and the reason is because my hands are getting stiffer and stiffer. So you're going to have to put up with my slowness, I'm sorry. And I don't want my shape to be too complicated, because that forces the program to travel and give me all kinds of peculiar effects. Actually, I need that to be at the topmost point. There we go. Now, if you make complicated shapes, the program has to fill a bit, then move somewhere else, fill another bit. And I want this one to be my fill endpoint. So it starts up here and it finishes filling down here. So now I'm going to tell that generate stitches. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't look much like a curve to me. But remember, my screen is massively magnified. these little squares are 1 millimeter. The bigger square is 2 millimeters. So if I pick up my ruler and I measure from stitch point to stitch point, there's a stitch point, and I measure up to here, that gives me a stitch length of 4.5 millimeters, or, and this is very obliging of embird, because they know America is about the only country left using imperial measurement. Okay, now if we look at that in 3D, there it is. Now you get a reasonable facsimile of a curve in that direction, but of course coming back this way it's not quite so clean. So what can we do about that? And if we look at it in 1:1, you'll see how small it is. Right. I go into parameters and I say to it, okay, I don't want a stitch length that long. What can I do? Well, you alter your scale, because your scale alters your stitch length. So let's take that down to 75. Tell that OK, and regenerate stitches. That's a lot better, but it's still not perfect. I think it's still too long. So I'm going to pick up my measuring stick, and your measuring stick is at the bottom in your left hand vertical toolbar. You click on a stitch point, you click on a stitch point. That one is 3.4 millimeters long. For my taste, still too long. So I hit escape, it gets rid of my tool. I go back into parameters and I say, give me a scale of 50%. And it says, well, fair enough, there you are. So now I'm going to pick up my tool, and I like my stitches to between 2.5 and 2.8. So there's 2 needle penetrations. That's 2.36. A little bit too short for me. I know I'm being fussy, but a short stitch also exerts a lot of pull, and I don't want a lot of pull. So I go back into parameters. I left click, I right click, parameters. Let's try that at 60% and generate that. Go and pick up my ruler, and your stitch points, if I blow this up, okay, and then I go onto that little node there, which gives me back my measuring tool. That's a node point just there, not a node, stitch point, or it would be if these were stitches, but of course they're not, they're just a computer rendition. 2.6,